Item 13, Stephen Bell and Taryn Crew on the approval of seasonal closures of vehicle access to Muriwai Beach. Moved by Councillor Walker, second by Councillor Henderson. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for having us today. I'm going to hand over to Stephen Bell, who is our Senior Advisor, Principal Advisor in Regional Parks, and he'll take us through the recommendations for today and a bit of a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Taryn. Kia ora, Madam Chair, councillors and members of the committee. Stephen Bell's my name. I work for the Regional Parks team. I'll here to present to you and ask for the committee's approval to approve the seasonal closure of vehicle access to Te Onioni Rangatira Muriwai Beach for the next 3 years over the New Year period, and for Guy Fawkes also for the next 3 years. We have a very short PowerPoint presentation, after which we can hopefully take the agenda item as read and answer any questions you may have. Muriwai Beach is a very, very popular one of two beaches in the Auckland region which vehicles regularly drive on, the second being Kariatahi in the south, the Franklin area. The information you're looking at present is the number of vehicle movements onto and off Muriwai Beach over the last couple of years. Now, you know, for every vehicle that drives onto the beach, it drives off again, so you're looking at vehicle movements. 80% of the vehicle traffic onto the beach has been traditionally through the Muriwai Regional Park, through Coast Road, and around about 20% of the traffic has been through Wilson Road and Rimmer Road when it was open. Rimmer Road has been closed for some time now, so the only two access points are Coast Road and Wilson Road. You can see the impact of COVID, the level 4 restrictions in there, and also you can see the impact of the seasonal closures from previous years. Traditionally, we've taken an educative approach to trying to encourage better driver behaviour, environmental stewardship, and environmental responsibilities on Muriwai Beach. The clearance signage clearly indicating where vehicles are permitted to drive and where they are not permitted to drive is at both entry points. And we've also enjoyed the support of four-wheel drive clubs who chipped in and basically paid for a trailer-mounted sign to encourage people driving onto the beach into basically where they can and can't drive and what their responsibilities were. We also have a pamphlet which is regularly produced, which covers the obligations or expectations of drivers, reinforces the areas they can and cannot drive, and stresses rules around fires, illegal camping, or camping, or the fact that camping is not permitted in the area, and other responsibilities. In a recent we also have recently obtained some information from the New Zealand Fire Service, because fire in Muriwai is a significant risk, and it's one of the reasons why we seek the restricted vehicle access to the beach. Now, this is information from Fire and Emergency New Zealand for fires reported to them over the last 20 years. You'll see they've had 361 fires reported. 73% of the fires reported to them have been in and around the edges of, around the edges of Woodhill Forest, not in the forest proper. The big concern is the regional park and the dune system has very flammable fine leaf vegetation on the windward side of a 12,000 hectare standing pine forest, which is owned by Naumonga Whakahio Kaipara Development Trust. So fire is a very significant risk, and as you can see from the information and the charts attached, that actually there's a big cluster of activity around the main entry points onto the beach. Environmental impacts on the beach. There are ongoing impacts to the dune system and the beach proper. The way we try to manage those, in addition to the education, is we have rangers patrolling the beach. Our staff resource is very, very limited. And when you consider in a weekend we may have one staff member, other than summer when we have two, trying to ensure that the message is getting through to what can be in excess of 1,000 vehicles travelling on that beach on a day, it can be a very fraught and challenging sort of exercise for them. We have an increasing level of locals concerned about the behaviour, the negative behaviour of drivers on the beach, particularly driving in areas which are prohibited. And a review of incidents recorded on the beach show really there's little change to the overall driver behaviour on the beach over time. We have an ongoing issue with fires, as I've said before, dangerous and reckless driving of motor vehicles, vehicles driving in prohibited areas, illegal hunting, illegal camping, and some of the driving behaviour has resulted in serious vehicle crashes. Not sure what happened to that one. This is just a couple of photographs of the visual impacts of vehicles on the beach. And often with the beach, people will talk about when the tide comes in, generally the impact of vehicles is healed. There's still some more research required around it, but I'm pretty sure the Tohero would have a slightly different view of the impact of vehicles because they drive up the intertidal zone, and I think certainly there's a lot of speculation that vehicles do significant damage to that part of the environment. The pictures you're looking at there are Wilson Road, top left, is just vehicle volumes at Wilson Road. The middle image is again vehicles at the Wilson Road end, which is about 30 kilometres north of the Coast Road access point. The bottom left is the outcomes from poor driving, and the image to the right is a blue penguin trying to cross the beach through all the vehicle tyre tracks to get to some point of refuge in the dune system. Just so you know, the penguin did actually make it that day, although the next morning there was a tyre track about half a metre away from where it was resting. So in summary, our recommendations are we're asking the committee to approve the seasonal closures for the New Year period over 3 years. Dates are there. Also asking you to approve the closure of the vehicle access to the beach over the Guy Fawkes period, being from the date of commencement of sale of fireworks to the Monday following Guy Fawkes Day. So this year that would be from Thursday the 2nd through to Monday the 6th. Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy to answer any questions.
Stephen, and we'll go for questions. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you for this. Look, if it all went pear-shaped and the closures didn't work or there was a lot of pushback or whatever, you're locking us in for 3 years. Will there be a review period as part of that? I mean, will you actually have a look and see, you know, is it working well? Is everyone happy? Or
If I may, through you, Madam Chair, we do, when we close the beach, we put some significant physical barriers in place. From time to time, those barriers are, and they have been put in place for the last 3 years over the New Year period. So this is a continuation of what has happened for 3 years. From time to time, those barriers are removed, and some very enterprising four-wheel drivers, we do try to repair them and get them resecured.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Yes, I wish to speak in support in principle, but also I'd like to make some additional comments.
Councillor Lee, I'm sorry to interrupt. We're in questions. Shall I put you down for comments?
Please put me down.
Thank you. Councillor Turner.
Thank you very much. So I see in the PACE committee resolution that was for the 3 year previous, there was no mention of closure there. The closures that you've had over Christmases for the last 3 years have been implemented by yourselves under your own, your own initiative. You're now asking us to formalise those by resolution, correct?
No, sorry, incorrect. The first year the beach was closed as an operational decision. The second year, being 21-22 and 22-23, were closed by resolution of the PACE committee.
Not the resolution connected to our presentation today, is that right? I've got it here in front of me. I can't see the word closure in it anywhere.
Previous resolution from the PACE committee was well, actually, they resolved to close the beach for 22-23, and again, prior to that, 21-22.
Okay, move on. So the joint agency Muriwai Management Group, that's basically the establishment, correct? Police, fire, parks.
And other organisations that have an interest in managing Muriwai
Listed
Beach.
here,
Correct.
yeah, thanks. The community advisory group, that's
Made up of members of the Wilson Road community, the Muriwai community, and members of the four-wheel drive community.
so there's you don't mention there the 3 public meetings. I saw no mention in the presentation about the 3 public meetings, which were standing room only at 3 halls in the area. Yeah.
Through you, Madam Chair, they were referenced in a report to the PACE committee at the end of their last term. So no, not referenced in this report.
Thank you. The Surf Lifesaving Club, they were referenced in the last one, were they? They weren't. They were kind of neutral on the whole situation.
Through Madam Chair, the Surf Lifesaving Club is invited to the joint agency meetings. They have been unable to attend many of them, and they are kept in touch with the outcomes from those meetings.
There was a Stuff article though with them in 21 that where they said they didn't give support. I have the article here.
Through Madam Chair, that's correct. A member of the Muriwai Surf Lifesaving Club voiced a personal opinion, which was subsequently retracted by the surf club, I believe.
The boat launching area will still be open, and boats and trailers or trailers and the towing vehicles will be allowed to park on the beach still?
As at this point in time, the southern end of Moriwai, being Maratara Road, is the subject of a corridor access restriction because of landslip and land instability on the hillside to the south of it. Our intention is for the boat launching arrangement to be re-established so people can launch and retrieve, members of the fishing club can launch and retrieve their vessels from that southern end, as they have done for the last 21 years.
And so there are people with permits to go on the beach, primarily the four-wheel drive club?
Through Madam Chair, currently a permit to drive on either Muriwai or Kariatahi Beach is a free permit that you obtain via an online system. As at my last look, which was a couple of weeks ago, there was around about 4,300 permits issued to drive on Muriwai.
So is that similar to just booking yourself a site at a campground or something like that, that the public can go into it and just...
Yeah, correct, without the payment at this stage.
Okay, thank you. Wind carts, they're still allowed on the beach?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Well done. Councillor Darby.
Thank you. Thanks for your work. Just a question about the period. In 21, I think it started on the 24th and went to mid-January from memory. I guess my question is, if it's about safety of people and then safety of property being, the landscape, the iwi forest, etc. Have you given consideration to that period actually starting the 24th of December as it started in 21, or as it was in year 2021, and extending through that high use period, which extends right through to anniversary weekend and then even into Waitangi Day, which next year is on the Tuesday, and as we know, many people take that Monday. Have you given consideration to that high use period? That's the first question. And the second is, NIWA are predicting a very dry summer coming up, and that with that are westerly winds. And that's exactly what you're describing as the big risk up there in terms of fire. So have you factored that into your recommendations? 2 questions there, thanks.
Through Madam Chair, yes, in relation to your first question. When we first closed Te Onioni Rangatira to vehicles, we closed it for a period of Christmas Eve through to about mid-January. As a result of feedback and reviewing that, we subsequently changed that and sought the permission from the Post Committee to close it from prior to New Year, being the more celebratory time of year, to enable families to access the beach and picnic over the Christmas period. With respect to your second question on fire, we, in 2022, we extended the closure period at the request of Fire Emergency New Zealand because the fire level had reached an extreme point. We would do so again. We tend not to come back to the committee for that approval. Fire and Emergency New Zealand simply tell us that they need it closed because of extreme fire risk, and we close it.
Okay, so this recommendation is running for a period of potentially 3 years. So within that, you have the power to respond if fire risk arises. But within that, do you have the power to respond if personal safety risk arises? Like if there are some incidents and you get a read on it and go, actually, I need to make a different decision here. Do you have the power to do that, as you do for fire?
Through Madam Chair, less so. That is something that we would have to do some research on and come back to the committee for.
Member Ashby.
Kia ora. Thank you. Good to see you, Stephen. Just a quick one from me. Ngāti Whātua, and in fact Kaura as well, but Ngāti Whātua is the lead there. I understand in previous engagements have supported the last lot of previous temporary closures. But could you speak to my understanding of Ngāti Whātua's position in the past has been for a more fulsome closure or regulation of, 4,000 cars hooning up and down past there, running over penguins and setting fire to their forest. There's a bit of an issue, I imagine. Can you speak to that?
I can speak to the feedback I've had from them, but I cannot speak to it because that is a matter that Ngā Maunga Whaki o Kaipara would have to speak to. The conversations that I've had with and the involvement from Ngā Maunga Whaki o Kaipara Ngāhere Limited, being the forest, entirely in support of not only seasonal closure but a much more fulsome restriction of vehicle access to the beach. Previously, Ngā Maunga Whakahi has, during a bylaw review in the 2018-ish, expressed an opinion around whether vehicles should be able to access the beach at all. They did step back from that. That said, I received some information, or actually confirmation, from Ngā Maunga Whaki o Kaipara Development Trust this morning and from Rewati Marae that they were both in support of the temporary closures as per the resolution.
Thank you.
Councillor Ferry.
Kia ora, thank you. This all seems very sensible to me. One concern I do have is around the enforcement and what that might mean for staff in particular, and members of the community who are trying to point out to people, hey, you can't do this. And this is probably a question that might be a little bit more in Taryn's space. You've given us great information, thank you. What are we doing as an organisation to make sure that people are supported in those circumstances? Thinking about the wellbeing team's work and things like that.
Well, thank you for the question. Through the Chair, Stephen might be able to give a little bit more detail because having previously been the Western Sector's Principal Ranger, he's definitely got all the detail. But it is something that we assess, and it's the reason we bring in additional summer rangers as well over that period, acknowledging that it is a difficult issue for them to deal with, but we do bring in additional staff during that time period, I should say, where we see the number of vehicles increase significantly. I don't know if Stephen wants to add anything further.
If I can, through you, Madam Chair, the staff are, we try to ensure that the staff are encouraged that if they feel that there is a risk of confrontation, and in that environment there is often some people with vastly different opinions on what they should and shouldn't be able to do, that they will step back. The tools that we have in our toolbox to be able to meaningfully do anything from an enforcement or compliance perspective are very poor. We have support from the police as far as they are able to within the resourcing they have. They provide 2 staff, or this year I think they're planning to provide 2 staff. Previously they provided 1, committed to solely look at the Muriwai safety of vehicles on beaches issue out there, and they will issue infringement notices as they are able to. But, you know, the beach is 45 to 60 kilometres long. It has limited communication coverage and can be very isolating.
Thank you. Follow up for that then, and sorry, Stephen, I didn't mean to imply that you wouldn't know the answer. I was more trying to put it on Taryn as a yeah. With the enforcement, and you mentioned the police can give infringement notices. Are our staff able to give infringement notices? Is there any ability to enforce, via licence plate number or anything like that? I'm just wondering, Madam Chair, if this is one of those things that needs to go on our list for discussing with central government in that in that fine space. So, yeah, how does that work?
Through you, Madam Chair, at the moment, not well. The Auckland Transport and Auckland Council are having a look at our respective traffic bylaws to get some more consistency there. At the moment, the vehicles on beaches is controlled by the Public Safety and Nuisance Bylaw. There is no infringibility to that. But there is a set of actions which have been identified that will hopefully provide a few more tools in the toolbox. We'll take one over the none that we have at the moment. And then clearly police have the authority to stop and issue infringement notices for breach of traffic regulations.
Thank you. Councillor Sayers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got a couple of questions, Stephen, and I'm a little bit resident about supporting the full recommendation. So I'll just go through those questions first and just hear what you have to say before I make up my mind, all right? So because it's quite, first of all, I really want to acknowledge you and you taking me out in the car, going down the beach, having a good look at the situation. Also, our community meetings that we've had there in Wilson Road, residents and things like that, just marvellous work that you're doing out there, and I know it's appreciated and I appreciate it. Those gates, you know how we're going to have fund some gates that are, I think we put $1 million thereabout, right? So to control access eventually with a paid permit to go through that gate, when will that be? Is it? I think it's within the next year or so. I'm asking this question in terms of reference of the 3-year timeline that we're looking here in A. When will that gate be in place? Roughly, yeah.
To the best of my knowledge, through you, Madam Chair, maybe 12 to 18 months.
Okay.
That is subject to a lot of variability, of course, but that's to the best of my
All
knowledge.
right. Okay. So, yes, yeah. So, again, just passing something 3 years out, we might have the gate in there that could change behaviour through a quota system or some other way of limiting access. Just one of the things that thoughts going on in my mind, right? The Guy Fawkes, right, coming in, because this caught me a little bit on the hop in terms of the clause about the Guy Fawkes coming in. I know that it's been pushed. You explained in your presentation, your report, why that's in there and who's advocated for that, and I can see the reasoning behind it, right? I guess my concern around it is we haven't. This is quite controversial, you know, out there, and it wasn't in the original public consultation document that we went out to and had all the meetings, and Councillor Turner's referred to 3 of them that were standing room only, and suddenly Guy Fawkes pops into the equation here, and I'm nervous to support this in the fact that it's gone to some of those interest groups, but it hasn't gone to wider public consultation. So I don't know if there's a question in there or not, mate, but it just worries me that we haven't gone to full public consultation. So give it an opportunity to respond. Can you explain, perhaps, would it be normal to go to public consultation, or why we haven't gone to full public consultation, and should we go to consultation before putting something like this in? Now, is it a bit early? Do we need to go through that process first?
Through you, Madam Chair, Guy Fawkes was tabled as a risk period by the organisations that have to deal with the consequences of Guy Fawkes. In regional parks, we have the benefit of dealing with the aftermath, but many of the organisations that are part, police and fire and emergency, have to deal with the real thing at the time. Certainly Ngā Maunga Whakahi o Kaipara Ngāhere Limited have a high degree of anxiety around Guy Fawkes, particularly with the El Nino weather pattern, drying conditions, and particularly dry forest. Previously in 2021, as referenced by Councillor Turner, an operational decision was made to close vehicle access to the beach, and so on the face of it I would say no. We wouldn't have to go to public consultation as a matter of practice, but that may be something that we revisit next year or at some stage in the near future.
Thank you for your response. I don't know if I'd be more comfortable if we had of, right? And final question is probably around the Rodney Local Board and their input into it, because I understand that they were split on, had to use the casting vote of the chair on it. So can you just confirm my understanding? Is that correct? I haven't looked up those minutes, but I understand that was the situation.
Through you, Madam Chair, correct. Yes, it was an even vote with the chair throwing the casting vote in favour.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Last
I'll just
question.
reserve my right for comments if I
Last
may.
question before comments. Councillor Filipina.
Thank you, Chair. Steve, can you confirm, and kia ora Taryn as well, sorry, can you confirm that in September of 21, the PACE committee ended up getting an item around closing Te Oneone Rangatira Muriwai Beach for the season? Can you confirm that?
Yes, I can.
And you also confirmed that in the 22nd of September 2022, there was an item on the agenda for future of management of motorised vehicles on Te Oneone Rangatira Muriwai. Can you confirm that?
Yes, I can.
Can you also confirm that part of the context in that report, that there were very valid concerns from the community? One, beach user safety and enjoyment, environmental protection and fire risk, and dangerous, reckless driving behaviour. Can you confirm that those risks are still present today?
Through Madam Chair, yes, they are.
Can you also confirm that around that particular item, there was a decision, I've got the minutes here, but I won't read those out, but there was a decision, one, to end up investigating a gate being placed over there in regards to the future management of motorised vehicles, and also there was going to be a seasonal closure as well.
That is correct.
And two more very quick questions, Chair. Can you also tell me that with some of the meetings that we had around that particular item, not only the closure but the future, is that with some of the meetings that have been tabled here, is that some of our staff were abused in regards to some of the people who attended that particular meeting, some of those meetings?
Yes, the meetings were of sufficient interest to make the lead item on One News.
And also that the editor for the four-wheel drive, I think, magazine was supportive in regards to the agenda item, and also commented in the magazine around the behaviour of some people who attended those meetings.
That is correct.
And the last one for me is that for us to make sure that we minimise the risks that have been identified, that the closures that you have in this report is the best way for us to minimise those risks.
Through Madam Chair, with the removal of vehicles during the period of time that the vehicles are removed from the beach, the risk is minimised. It does not go away because people can still walk, albeit at a much lesser distance. There is certainly a view that those closure periods are insufficient, expressed by some members of the public, and what we are asking for is in effect a decision to close vehicle access to the beach for 6% of the year.
Right, I just read the report again and just want to confirm that the local board, albeit a very close decision, the local board's recommendation was to support the item that we now have in front of us.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Just one quick one. Checks on the speed limits. There's, I think, 20k, 30k, 60 zone, north of Coast Road. what monitoring has been undertaken, and what have you learned of compliance with those speed limits?
Through you, Madam Chair, the speed limits are 30 kilometres an hour on Coast Road until you get to the beach, and then 30 kilometres an hour to 650 metres past the four-wheel drive access, which in effect is the stream. Beyond the stream, it is a 60 kilometre-hour speed limit, although that does restrict around the Wilson Road access point. Anecdotal information would have vehicle speeds on West Coast beaches in excess of 100 kilometres an hour quite frequently.
Thank you. We're going to move to comments. I'll ask you both to move away, but before you do, Stephen, thank you so much for the years and years of work that you've put into this and for fronting those public meetings, and, but importantly working with all the stakeholders. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Comments, Councillor Lee, you're first.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I wish to support the recommendations. I must express sympathy for management, rangers being required to deal with this problem. It's a hard one. It's been around for years, and there's no easy answers. I hate to be in support of taking a kind of a killjoy approach, because I recognise there are two different views in regard to beaches. Most people would consider that cars should not be on beaches, and yet there are some beaches in the country where the custom has grown up over years, since the invention of the automobile, I guess, that you can drive on beaches. And Muriwai is one of those beaches. There's another aspect to this. The measures in the recommendations are there to control behaviour and to ensure safety on certain days. But in many respects, they're quite inadequate. But in the real world, achieving this is difficult enough. The reason why I believe the controls are inadequate is a factor that's not taken into consideration in making these decisions, and that relates to our responsibilities under the Resource Management Act and other statutes in regard to Indigenous fauna. And I'm not talking about the korora of the little penguins. I'm talking about what was considered a taonga, and not just by Māori, but obviously by Māori. A taonga, considered a taonga by all New Zealanders, and that is, Muriwai is one of those places which was the natural habitat of the tairoa. The tairoa was highly valued. In fact, it was an industry, a canning industry, because it was so sought after that it was commercially viable to actually can them and sell them. Tairoa soup was a luxury item. And right up to after World War II, every year the tairoa would turn up and people would go out and harvest them in the season. Harvested them so much that they went into decline. And despite closed seasons, I'll try to make an important point here. Despite closed seasons, they remained in decline at Muriwai and other places. And there's a co-relationship between the decline of the tairoa and driving on the beach. And as I say, it's a co-relationship. As vehicles have got bigger and heavier and more of them, despite fisheries closed seasons, the Toiroa have never come back as it should. And so the co-relationship is a very strong one, though not completely and not scientifically proven. And I believe it's a responsibility of this council to undertake research, to commission research into the reasons why the Toiroa in our region have not rejuvenated. And I'm pretty sure the answer lies with using Muriwai as a highway. And the point is, while we have the Toiroa is the cousin, about this big, is a cousin of the Pipi, first cousin of the Tuatua. But its behaviour is somewhat different from its cousins. The Toiroa lives high up the beach. It rests high up the beach. And because it's big, it's got a fragile shell, what makes it very vulnerable to vehicles. And so vehicles have not only impacted on the Toiroa through making it easier to poach them big time, but it is actually crushing and killing them. And therefore, I would think it's a responsibility of this council under Part 6 of the Resource Management Act, for a start, all persons exercising functions under and powers under this Act have a responsibility to recognise and provide for the significant habitats of Indigenous fauna, that this council takes such measures to investigate the impact of motor vehicles on this taonga. And I'm not going to move an amendment at this stage, but I'm signalling it to Ms Tyler and Dr Weiss that they should make it a priority to consider engaging research or undertaking research, literature research and direct research to investigate this, because I believe it's our responsibility. I'll just make that point. So in addition to human health and safety, we should also be thinking about our responsibilities to the natural world when it comes to One Rangatira. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. I speak on behalf of Megan, but we've got people taking notes on this, so we will come back about that research that you've requested. Thank you. Councillor Sayers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I'll take my speaking opportunity to acknowledge Councillor Lee's comments there. They were very important comments, Mike, and I'm very pleased that you've made them, because I am sure that those Toiroa were in the kill zone as well. And your point around the vehicles even getting heavier, more frequent, I'm sure that there is a direct correlation there, and why we're not seeing them come back. So I just want to endorse your comments there, sir. And I guess it's just a seasonal ban of this quantum isn't going to solve the problem, and neither do I see that seasonal ban solving the problem of the other public safety risks and health and safety and public safety risks as well that exist there. I'm probably not going to support the motion itself, but I do want to acknowledge your comments there, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Darby.
Yeah, thanks to the staff, and yeah, Councillor Lee, thanks for your comments there. It's really important to remember that the history of this incredible shellfish population, that sustained Māori in that area from, Dargaville Beach, Muriwai area for, hundreds of years, and it became a commercial product. I won't go on about that, but there's three memories for me here. One is, as a young child, being taken every year from South Auckland, where I grew up, to Muriwai Beach to do the annual Taurua harvest every year. And I think it only lasted for probably about 5 years, but you know, it was a pilgrimage. And of course, I do remember going to the far end of the beach because there was nothing at the south end. The entry point was pretty much at the south end then. So you were travelling over this ground repeatedly, year after year, I guess, doing exactly what you were saying, annihilating the population until the population was only at the northern end. And then that was annihilated. There is another theory that I've heard from our colleague, or former colleague, Glenn Wilcox, on the possibility of the arrival of plantation radiata forestry and the change in the groundwaters that then arrive at the beach as well. But I agree with you, it does demand some ongoing research because we seem to have forgotten that this shellfish is almost no longer, I don't think it's, you know, there's no longer the days where you get a shellfish like that. My second memory, and in terms of the speeds that were mentioned here, of 100 kilometres an hour on this beach, that's alarming. So my second memory is as a 17-year-old, I think, in my VW Beetle, going up the beach, being the wannabe surfer, couldn't do it really, riding on the front of my Beetle of my friend driving and coming off at about 30 kilometres an hour and hitting sand like it was concrete. The reason I came off is my colleague hit soft sand and the vehicle just did a big divert to the right and I went left. It is not a flat, hard road. There are soft parts on it as well, and you can deviate course quite quickly, and motorcyclists will tell you that, the car drivers. My third story is as the parent of a daughter. It's okay, Councillor Walker, I think you're disabled, you mentioned that before. We won't call you Councillor Walker then. So my third memory, thank you, Councillor Shane Henderson, he gave me that just after lunch.
Outrageous, Chris.
My third memory is taking my second daughter, who was a keen horse rider, to ride a horse there. And she would take her to Coast Road, horse float, get out, start riding, and she'd come back 2 hours later, hopefully. Except on one occasion, she took a while coming back because the horse went lame because a vehicle came really close to the horses and spooked the horses, and the horse went lame for a period. I actually think there's some ongoing issues here. You know, it's just a matter of time before we do not allow this to be the highway. It's the highway because we allowed it to be the highway to the Toiroa to begin with, in my eyes. I think that's possibly the history of driving on the beach, is to drive to the food. And the food is now gone. And I will be supporting these motions today, but I've actually been pretty vocal on this each time it's come back. And I think we are going to have to grapple with the issue for a range of reasons to go the whole way on this and actually institute a ban to driving vehicles on Muriwai Beach.
Thanks, Councillor Darby. Councillor Turner.
Thank you very much. This is unworkable and divisive. You know, we've got a 50-kilometre beach. Who are we going to keep off? Not the people that were at the meetings that were rude and nasty and horrible. They're not going to be kept off. We're going to keep off the 90% of Kiwis, the good, compliant people who want to drive there and enjoy the beach and have a day out. You know, we're going to stop the grandmas and the grandpas taking the family and the toddlers up somewhere and having a sit and a picnic in somewhere quiet. You know, we've listened this morning, all this morning, about young people and our society feeling disconnected, not connected to council, not voting, not engaging with us. No, that's because when they go to the beach, they see a $1 million gate with surveillance. As they look over the gate, they see the four-wheel drive club with a permit and the blow carts with a permit driving off into the distance. while they're left sitting there thinking, feeling disengaged, disrespected, and with no life. You know, we have memories. I'd like them to have the chance for memories too. In the prime holiday period, yeah, I understand some of the environmental issues, but a short closure, as Councillor Sayers pointed out, isn't going to save Tauiroa. A closure of a portion of the beach further up permanently might do. But, you know, over the prime holiday period, when a lot of those families have got, you know, that time off and they just want to, they get out there, they probably haven't even found they can go online and need to get a permit, and it goes on. We have alternatives to a gate and surveillance and locking people out. We have a parks ranger service. You know, the psyche in the human, in people's minds about park rangers, kids who watch Smokey the Bear on telly, is the policeman of the wilderness. We could get our park rangers back out there and doing their job properly. This, as you pointed out, Councillor Darby, is actually the beginning of the end. Closure by 1,000 little closures. You know, we're losing our Kiwi way of life, and we don't need to lock everybody out in order to get change. We need to engage and work with them, and as a result, they'll engage with us. And we might fix a lot of this morning's complaints as well as this afternoon's. I want to see the same management as the Parks Department has been practicing for the last 3 years continue. And I think it had results. Not completely, but nothing will. Thank you.
Councillor Walker.
I just have a side conversation, so I'm not speaking. Have you got on with the amendment, Mike?
Would it be acceptable for me to put up an amendment seeking management to commission some research into the question I raised? I'd ask Ms Tyler.
I'm sorry, Councillor Lee, but it should have happened in your last speaking turn, so we're unable to do that now.
That was a question, though, on Mike's part.
He was the first speaker.
In which case...
Because what I would like to do, because I hear what Councillor Turner is saying, and I understand the difficulties of the situation. I've been familiar with the area for 30 years in a councillor role. The thing is, are our decisions legible and easily explained to the public? If there was research to suggest negative environmental
Councillor
impacts,
Lee, you've had
then
your speaking turn, I'm sorry. Councillor Walker.
Sure. So I'll just put an amendment by way of addition before I speak, Madam Chair, and I'm sure I have the support of the seconder. And the amendment goes like this: that officers be asked to commission research into the impacts of motor vehicles on Muriwai Beach, on the Tauiroa, and there's the Latin Daffy's venticosa, close brackets, population.
Madam Chair, just a point of order.
Councillor Walker.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Point of order.
Point of order. Just a point of order. And that's just in terms of, I haven't got my standing orders in front of me, but I'll just take some advice if you need a number. But I'm just wondering in terms of relevance of that. I know the research is being undertaken separately, was being indicated to you by the staff, and that seems, I agree with it, and I can see the intent of the amendment, but just in terms of standing orders, is it appropriate to put in here? I think it confuses the issue, because some of us might want to vote against this, and suddenly we're voting against something that we might support.
Yes, I agree with you. And the other point that I would make is that we shouldn't be commissioning any work right now. We should be waiting until our long-term plan. I think it's something that can go back to Megan. I was considering maybe it's some work that Remo could do, but it absolutely needs to come through our long-term plan discussions. We can't keep commissioning work to be done when we've got no money.
there may not be any money involved on our part. There are a number of agencies that could be engaged here, Madam Chair. So there's an amendment that's been put up.
Yeah, we'll get it done, bro. Just wait. We'll get it done. There's no need to hurry. Just we'll do this shit.
Thank you, Member Hemere, for your contribution.
I was really asking for direction, whether it's within standing orders.
Just
Standing
gonna
orders
take some
seems to have
advice.
become more restrictive in recent years, but anyway.
This is a bit like those packed
Madam
meetings,
Chair,
Steve.
if I may, I'd like to speak to the point of order by way of clarification.
Happy to hear from you, Councillor Fletcher.
Councillor Walker. Yes, Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you. By way of clarification, when the draft regional management parks management plan went through last year, there were a great number of submissions, as you may recall, and having been involved in that work, along with then Councillor Linda Cooper, there was quite a bit of work already undertaken on this issue. You've heard the complications today around bylaws and the need to get changes from within government, and this applies not just to Muriwai but also to Kiriotahi. I think that the work has probably already been undertaken, and maybe it's a matter that could come before another committee meeting of the planning committee, bringing back some of that research. At the time, the officer, Mr. Bell, gave great advice, and we had Mace Ward also provide great advice. I've still got all my files on this that I could provide to the committee, but it's not commissioning a fresh piece of work as such. It's something that I think is already in existence, but it is a controversial issue, and the Four Wheel Drive Association and many others have made submissions, but there is quite a serious environmental impact on Muriwai, and I think it would be informative for councillors to have, and members of the IMSB, to have access to the information that came through by way of submissions and officers' report.
Thank you, Councillor. We have an amendment. So,
Hang on, sorry.
hold on one moment.
Sorry, just to clarify, members of the committee, so Councillor Walker moved the original motion and we don't have a mover for this item. You can't move an amendment if you've already moved the item. So is anyone else?
He was me that really moved it, but he went and read it, so anyway, so you put me down, is that okay?
And you'd already spoken, Councillor Lee, so thank you, Councillor Watson.
It's very restrictive if we're going to have a decent debate here to pull those rules like that.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Point of order.
I need to come back because I didn't really get an
You didn't
answer
get
on
an
my
answer to your point of order.
And I've had a chance to get my folder out.
Good. It's
So
handy.
I will refer to this point of order being relevant to section 1.7.2, subsection C, and irrelevance. Irrelevance is the topic being discussed is not a matter currently before the meeting. And so I see this amendment as not being a topic, and so we just need a ruling on that. If the advice is in favour, the amendment should be removed.
Thank you. Councillor Sayers, yes, I do rule that it is out of order, and so the amendment will be declined. Thank you.
Contest that, Madam
So,
Chair?
Councillor Walker, do you want to finish your speaking turn?
Sure. And you're very fortunate that I didn't move a concern around tedious and repetitious speaking. But anyway, I didn't do that.
You're giving it a good go.
So, I thoroughly endorse the sentiments and the information that Councillor Lee spoke to around the tauira. I'd suggest that we're on good account from the officers around the impact of vehicles on fauna and flora and the like, especially fauna. They spoke to that directly. So I think it is absolutely relevant. I'm disappointed with this view, and there is some urgency around this. And I know that my iwi friends across the table there are certainly supportive in that regard. So let's hope we get some progress on this sooner rather than later, and no doubt our iwi friends will even put some money up to help support the research.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Filipaina.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Lee, I want to acknowledge you along with the other councillors, Councillor Lee, because the history that you gave is something that I personally didn't know, but that's not surprising when I hail from up north and the work that you have been involved with them. So I mihi to you and say thank you so much for that, because that gives me another insight in regards to why these recommendations should go through. They should, because you've just given me even more excuses. I've outlined with the pathway that I gave to our staff, to Steve and to Taryn, that the reasons why this is so important. It's around the safety. And for those that were here the last term, and I know that Councillor Turner wasn't here last term, but for those that were here that ended up sitting through the PowerPoint presentations that our community gave, as well as the local board chair from last term, Phelan Piri, who came here. You know, I need to acknowledge him because he's been pushing this along with the local board last term for so many years. And even with him as I think he's with the fire service voluntary as well. And, you know, his work that he's done for Te One o Rangatira Muriwai has been amazing. So I want to acknowledge him. I also want to acknowledge the local board this term. Whether it's one vote or whether it's 6 votes, the recommendation went through supporting these recommendations that came through to this committee. There's one thing that sort of got my back up a little bit, and there was some comments that was made around enforcement, and the comment was, you know, let's get the rangers for them to do the job. Let's get them doing their jobs properly. I want to tell those rangers that are out there, you are doing your jobs properly. Again, even last term, what had happened was there was indicated to the committee the abuse that you were all getting from people who were driving on Muriwai. The abuse for those, and also the pictures that we saw of some of the penguins, and also some of the environmental issues that we have canvassed all the way through. So you are doing your jobs properly. It's the community, and it's a very few. Councillor Turner's right. There's only a very few people that spoil it for the rest, but we have to take control and end up doing something that will affect our community. And the fact that there has been some, and Councillor Darby mentioned it, 100 Ks on that beach, that's disgusting. 100 kilometres on that beach. What happens to the safety of the people who are walking the beach? What happens to them? Oh, no, look, somebody might get injured, but that's okay. One is okay. But look, let the rest of those drive on Muriwai because they want to enjoy it. So definitely want to support it. And again, just mihi, ngā mihi ki a koe te rangatira Mike. Ngā mihi ki a koe, my mate. Kia ora na, thank you.
Member Henare.
Oh yeah, look, totally support what's in front of me, but also the issue that Mike has raised about the whole toheroa issue. But here's the thing: come back tomorrow, bro, and you'll get support for it. But there's also another issue. And that's what Councillor Darby and a few others have raised. It is about time we pulled the pin on all the vehicles
going up and down Muriwai. Now, I know that there are some people who think that it's their Kiwi right to drive along on the highway of sand and pitch a tent. Yeah, we did that in 1965. You can't do it in 2023. And here's why. Because we know more than we did in 65. You know? And we want to be able to do something in 2065. Our mokos want to be able to go there and do what we did without a car in 1965. You know, it's all about progress, and it's all about looking after stuff for the young ones that come tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. You know, and if we don't, we do ourselves a disservice by not leaving stuff behind. You know, I've tasted toheroa, and I'd love a feed of them tonight as I watch my TV, but I know I can't. Well, I know I can't from here anyway. Maybe further north. The further north you go, there might be the odd one lying around somewhere in somebody's fridge. It's been there for 25 years. But like I say, so if we want to do something, do this today. Do what Councillor Lee and others are talking about tomorrow, and a week later, do what Councillor Darby has said. You know, let's put it all into a proper a line of attack. You know, we can invite the naysayers, but also, you know, let's do some work behind. And I tell you what, when Councillor Walker says his iwi mates will most probably be able to pay for it, that's not a bad idea. Why not get iwi involved in the whole process of looking at the degradation of Muriwai? You know, and I'm sure that there will be, if council comes to the party as well and other organisation as well, it might just be the catalyst that we all get together rather than just the council doing it on their own backs. Let's do it all together, because at the end of the day, we're all in this together.
Kia ora. Councillor Henderson.
Kia ora, really hard to follow that. I'll give it a try. Okay. Don't always need to speak, you're right, but no, I'll throw it in. Yeah, look, I'm really supportive of this. I think we've had some good yarns today about the problem broadly, and yeah, tautoko the call around trying to get some more advice and information and actually analyse the stuff that's already been done, which I think is quite extensive as well. Just want to shout out to the community in Muriwai, who are doing it really bloody tough, and all the other coastal communities in my ward. Muriwai is not, but we know the coasties out there that do a hell of a lot of work on environmental protection, a hell of a lot of work on things like search and rescue and helping people that get in trouble, which is all the time. I'm sure that community in Muriwai probably needs a bit of a break from all of that, and the more that we can do to help, the better. So we should probably look at this in a broader way. And just before I finish, just acknowledge Glenn Wilcox from last term, who did a hell of a lot of work in this as well. So thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Last speaker is Councillor Watson.
Try and make it a quick and typically telling contribution, Madam Chair, and just really I respect your decision you made in respect of Councillor Lee's attempted amendment via me. I would just say, to me, it seems perfectly relevant to the whole train of thought there or justification. So I probably could have done without the word commission. We have REMU. I'm sure this study's been done. I'm sure it's an exercise that could be done relatively quickly in-house without any cost, and that goes for a lot of other things besides this. So as far as the Chief of Strategy goes, I'm assuming, Megan, you'll be picking that up and coming back, I'm sure, the information that will already exist So that's the only points I wanted to make.
Thanks, John. All right, that's everybody. So I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Against?
An enthusiastic no, Madam Chair.
Anybody else? No. Thank you. A question for you. We can go through the rest of the agenda by not having presentations if you're comfortable, you've read your agenda and looked at the presentations, or we can come back on Tuesday. What's your preference?